72 written by the good folks of God.
Thank you very much, and welcome to episode 4 of my podcast, Cultural Osmosis, the show where every episode we talk about a different pop culture fandom so that you don't have to. My guest this week is Colin Smith. Why don't you wave to the camera, Colin? So,
I like to be on camera.
yeah. So the first question I always like to ask all my guests, just to get the ball rolling, is why is this fandom like your favorite over other ones like Harry Potter or like Marvel or anything? Would you care to elaborate?
Okay, so how it kind of differs from a lot of fandoms is that Star Wars as a story is like a singular sort of it is singular and one canon that doesn't kind of branch off or has like different universes or things like that. If something is stricken from the canon, it essentially doesn't exist within Star Wars anymore. This is
Like,
kind of
yeah.
but
You mean like how like Spider-Man is rebooted like every 5 years? Like, are you saying
yeah.
like Star Wars is just like one continuous canon since the 70s? Yeah.
Yes. But it can also be seen through the lens of many different authors and creators. That's kind of where it differs from, I would say, something like Harry Potter, where Harry Potter is one canon, but ultimately it has to be from the mouth of a singular woman, which is which it's very slow coming.
Yeah. The thing I discuss with everybody is like George Lucas is like such an amazing grade A++ world builder that is just like unparalleled. His dialogue writing abilities leave something to be desired, but like his ability to create worlds is just amazing. That's why people see movies like if you see A New Hope, like that entire movie is pretty much just on the Death Star, but the world is so rich that there was like ample opportunities for like so many different sequels.
Yeah, I think he understands his world to a great degree. It's not like something he created and then it's not something he created to just be like a film or something. Yeah, it's built to be kind of an overarching story with consistency in a way. Kind of with the way, yeah.
Saga of the Wills.
Like basically, he gets the final say on a lot of Star Wars product.
Well, see, that's a whole different thing. Branching off, not to get away, but like I was talking with somebody a while ago. There's a degree where a director gets so successful that people are afraid to tell them no, which is one of the main theories why the prequel films were such like a miss at the time, is because he did like half of the original trilogy and then he got super famous and everyone was just like, it's his vision, don't tell him no to any of his ideas. And then Phantom Menace comes out and that was like 100% his vision because people were afraid to tell him no. And I think
it was even like Steven Spielberg. I should fact check that, but Steven Spielberg even came in and did a testing and told him it was good. I don't know. Now I can't find anything. I guess I don't.
Well, I know. Well, the thing I know when he first screened A New Hope, Spielberg was like the only person who said it was good. All other directors at the time said it was
Maybe
bad.
that's what I was thinking.
I think you're thinking of that because it's like the same story.
Yeah, that is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Because the original, because A New Hope had to be re-edited.
Yeah. But anyway, that was just my warm-up
Yes.
question. The
Okay. Okay.
just so people know where you're coming from, who you side with, I gotta ask, who in the entire universe is your favorite Star Wars character?
In terms of complexity of story, it's interesting because obviously it's a story now where with all the context of the movies, it is a story in which the first thing we saw was apparently the middle portion.
Which is so
Um,
random.
and yeah, and there's kind of an order in which you're supposed to watch it, and you are supposed to start with the original films, I would say. Star Wars wants you to start watching at A New Hope. Then it wants you to watch the prequels, probably.
So
And then it wants
so
you to watch um, the
so
sequel trilogy now. So
yeah.
I would say in complexity, Anakin Skywalker is probably the most interesting character.
Hmm.
Um, from the perspective of seeing the original trilogy and then watching the prequel movies.
Hmm.
Things like Clone Wars and stuff, I guess, also add to that. I don't know. It's weird talking about Clone Wars in reference to, I guess, the film, but this is a
It's
fandom podcast, so Wars kind of adds and expands on kind of the complexity of Anakin Skywalker,
well,
which is good.
yeah. I think the thing that nobody talks about is like there's literally a line in Attack of the Clones where Anakin says to Padme that he believes the universe should have a dictatorship. Like,
Hmm.
so as early as episode 2, he was already like slipping towards the dark side.
Well, that's kind of a really important detail with him is he believes in order to gain peace, that peace can be gained through the subjugation of the galaxy,
Hmm.
um, which is something that the Jedi don't necessarily even like um, during kind of the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith is something they don't really even uh, how would I say disagree with, because obviously they're on the side of the Republic who's fighting a war
Hmm.
of for the unification of the galaxy, and they're on the side of the Republic because the Republic, I guess, it makes it easier for them to gain peace over the worlds with a military that can give peace and not just Jedi, um, which is ultimately their kind of downfall that they don't see coming. But yeah, I would say Anakin is probably the most complex character,
I would agree
um,
with that. It's
with
pretty
probably the most sort of like. There's a lot given to Anakin. There's a lot of Anakin in Star Wars. There's a lot of Darth Vader.
well, he's
Um,
like the main character of the prequels, I would say.
yeah,
So like it's and I think it's a very justified main
yeah.
character.
And when you see the kind of the prequels, it kind of makes him the main character of the sequels,
Original trilogy,
original
yeah.
trilogy. Yeah, it's hard to kind of, if you watch the prequels first, it can be hard to kind of focus a lot on the original trilogy,
Hmm.
just because Anakin was such a prominent character then,
Yeah.
and he's different in the original trilogy, that it feels more like a continuation of his story than like maybe, you know,
Yeah.
Luke's sometimes.
I would agree with that.
Um,
I would say, for me, it's one of those impossible questions of like, who's your favorite character? I think in recent years, I think, I think Lando is really underappreciated. He's such a character that nobody talks about, yet is very interesting. Um, also, uh, I really like the sequel trilogy. I think what they did with Rey was really interesting. Um,
I would say Ray was one of my favorites up until recently. Um,
um,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
But
hard.
ultimately, in terms of favorite character, I would have to say Max Rebo.
I was gonna go Gonk Droid, but you
Gonk
gotta
Droid is a good one.
Max Rebo. You gotta love Max Rebo. I like to
He just
believe.
wants to play music.
I like to believe he survived the sail barge
I think he
explosion.
did. Hold on.
Say, I just got to stop this podcast and talk about Max Rebo for 45 minutes.
He did survive. Okay, that's all I'll
I'm
say
glad he did.
on the rest of it.
But anyway, all right. What would you say is the single? And you don't have to talk too much about it. This is just more so people know your preference. But what would you say in all nine? I guess all nine films and the two spin-off films. What is the single best Star Wars movie that was made, and what was the single worst one? So you go and then I'll go.
My favorite Star Wars film is The Last Jedi.
That's your single favorite one.
That is, I would say, is my single favorite one. And the reason is when I was a kid, I enjoyed Star Wars as a franchise, as Star Wars, as just the media on the surface level, buying the toys and acting like I was a Jedi. That's what I wanted to do as a kid. And as I got older and I got more interested in film and things like that, I become more interested in Star Wars as
Like a
film
mythology,
and
like
as the medium,
as a okay.
as something that's like written and thematic and has sort of applying to kind of a real world context, which is something that Star Wars has always done. And I think it's important for Star Wars to do to feel like Star Wars. So yeah, I think that's kind of one of the reasons I really enjoy kind of Last Jedi. I see it as a very kind of introspective Star Wars film that
It's
points not
definitely
just as it points to Star Wars not just as like Star Wars, but as what Star Wars means to people and what it means to us.
I think
And kind
that,
of the road that it can kind of take that can make it a little bit not Star Wars anymore, if that makes sense.
it's definitely one of the most like splitting Star Wars films. The arguments in its favor I've heard is it is a breakdown of the Star Wars formula and what it stands for. But I think for me personally, I would have rather seen a continuation of the characters than a breakdown of them. But it's definitely the audience is very split, and the people who like it do like it, and I can respect that. For me personally, I still stand by that my favorite and the best Star Wars film is Return of the Jedi. I know that's also very divisive or like splitting, but people say, like I said, coming off of A New Hope, like that entire film is on the Death Star. So the reason people say Empire Strikes Back is the best one was because it expanded the world. I think Return of the Jedi also expands the world, and also the locations are just more fun. Also, I just love green lightsabers, and that was the first one. And the entire sail barge sequence, which is like the first hour of the movie, is just like breathtakingly awesome. You can say what you want about the Ewoks. People are very split about the Ewoks, but I think they're fun. They're like foot tall teddy bears that are also cannibals. Like, what's not to like about that? And also, if you didn't have the prequels, it's also the best lightsaber fight because Empire Strikes Back and A New Hope have very weak lightsaber fights. They're very slow. So it also has that going for it.
I also don't really mind the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi. I think something I do like the beginning and I do like the end of Return of the Jedi. I just feel like the middle bits on Endor really slow down to sort of a degree, and they spend a lot of time with the Ewoks, which is very strange. But yes, I'm very fond of the beginning of Return of the Jedi,
You
and
see,
then the final battle of
oh
Return
yeah,
of the Jedi.
and then
Um,
it also has the Emperor, which has sort of become the main villain of all 9 films, which is also there. But yeah, I think adults really like Empire Strikes Back, and kids really like Return of the Jedi. And I think that just shows you more about which one's more fun. But that's just my personal opinion. What would you say then, coming off of that? Let's flip the script now. What would you say is the single worst Star Wars film ever made?
oh man.
And
Um,
this can be really brief. I can go first if you need to think about it.
go ahead, go first.
Okay, so mine's actually not the one you think. The single worst Star Wars film I think is Rogue One. Honestly, I watched. Yeah, I know you were thinking I was gonna say Last Jedi, but the way I
I
see
was
it,
thinking
it's
Last Jedi or Attack of the Clones, or
wait,
I guess
Attack
Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace has a pacing issue, which is
Phantom Menace.
horrible.
Phantom Menace, if it wasn't for the Darth Maul fight, which is almost the single best lightsaber fight of all 9 films, Phantom Menace would suck. I think Rogue One was just every single character in that movie was unlikable, and I was not rooting for them. And the thing I really hate is when series retcon themselves, and there was so many retcons in Rogue One that I have unofficially labeled it as a failed reboot of A New Hope. So I really do not like Rogue One, and I think it was the worst Star Wars movie made. See, I've seen Last Jedi 3 times, so I can't say I hate that one.
I
Uh,
like I like Rogue One. There's something strange about Rogue One, and the fact that I really like the end action bit, and uh, my girlfriend really likes the beginning, the first half. Um,
so it's very split.
it's split, yeah. I really like Rogue One as Star Wars action. I think that end bit is
Well, yeah,
cool. That's
it was.
basically all I care about. I don't. I'm in no way going to defend it as like a good Star Wars movie
It's because
because
it's yeah.
I don't really think that it's that great.
Mm-mm.
I think it's normal. I think it's very mediocre,
I will tell you
honestly.
the single best part of Rogue One was seeing Ponda Bubba. That was the only good part of seeing Rogue One was they brought Ponda Bubba back, and I
I
loved.
don't. I've never been a big fan of like references and like referential stuff.
Oh
It's
wow,
like when I see him, I'm just like,
you
oh, come
sighed.
on.
Mm.
I think it's like I to me it can feel a bit lazy or kind of manipulative on an audience
I don't
when they
think.
rely very heavily on this sort of reference, especially into itself, which is very strange. Um, it 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 makes it feel very self-indulgent.
So you did not like.
Um,
So I'm hearing you did not like seeing Ponda Bubba. I take that note.
I
Got it.
um, Here's the difference between Rogue One referencing stuff. I would say Rogue One is much more blatant in its references to Star Wars, other Star Wars media, and um, um,
It was like the first.
Solo is a little more subtle on that. The Solo does the same exact stuff, but its stuff is a lot more subtle.
We're gonna save Solo for later because
Okay.
that's gonna be a half-hour talk on itself. But so with getting back on topic, would you say so? You'd say the worst one is probably Phantom Menace then, or for you? See, because
No,
we.
I have the controversial opinion. I think
Oh
that
my
the worst
God,
Star Wars movie is Rise of Skywalker. I hate that film. I'm not a big fan of that film. I think it's missing a lot of the soul of Star Wars a little bit. I think it I think it references back into itself a lot. I think it's a very self-indulgent Star Wars film. I think it is a Star Wars film that was made off the tail of Infinity War and wanted to try something big like Infinity War,
It was
and thus
definitely going
was
for that.
sort of moved away from Star Wars, or like trying to be Star Wars. The thing that I can at least appreciate. Okay, go ahead.
You're allowed
Mm-hmm.
to believe that, like I said. Me personally, I am actually, I think, one of the few people on Earth who liked Rise of Skywalker. This is my framed Rise of Skywalker poster with my movie
Mm-hmm.
tickets. I loved it so much. It's actually, for me, it was not self-indulgent. It was everything. I think the way I view it as Last Jedi was so splitting, and so it literally tore fandom in half, that Rise of Skywalker was made as literally just a love letter to the series. And I watched 2 hour making of documentary, and literally everyone who made the movie says the same thing, is um, they're not trying to do anything like insidious or anything. The Rise of Skywalker is literally just a love letter to the Star Wars series as a whole, and all of the references that happen, like Palpatine and all the characters coming back, and all their motivations are literally just for that reason. And for that reason, I think Rise of Skywalker is actually really heartwarming and a really good bookend to the series as a whole.
I have a hard time with Rise of Skywalker in the idea that making a love letter still gives way to this like self-indulgent kind of nature of it, where the original trilogy are holier than thou films that must be um, held to a higher standard than everything else.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that J.J. Abrams does. Obviously, he is like, he's called the second Spielberg or whatever.
I really
He
like
makes
J.J.
films
Abrams.
like they're from the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen his Star Trek movies?
Yes, I have seen his Star Trek movies. Into Darkness is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And for almost the exact same reasons that I feel Rise of Skywalker is. When something is referenced, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is not narratively important. It is something that you as an audience member know, and the film is telling you that you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, just to break really quick, a quick aside. Into Darkness is the retelling of Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan, yes.
Yeah.
Well, that movie fails because people hail Wrath of Khan as the single best Star Trek movie, and also like one of the greatest sci-fi movies in general ever made. So the fact that J.J. Abrams was like, I'm going to remake Wrath of Khan, everyone's just going to hate it.
But I think it also feels that way with The Force Awakens and the Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker for me isn't a remake of like. Rise of Skywalker isn't a remake of like the original trilogy.
It's very indulgent into the same story structure of Return of the Jedi.
All right. This is a very long. But, so you're allowed. I'm not. We don't need to spend too much time on that. That's just
sure.
so the audience knows. I understand that, and I definitely recognize. But I think, man, Phantom Menace is just so bad. We're still in the best worst segment. Let's move on to just really fast, just because this is
sure.
also a point of argument. What do you think is the best order to watch the movies?
All the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, yeah. I think I would watch them in probably the order they came out.
Okay. So you're original trilogy, prequel trilogy. You're on that boat.
I would have to say so. If you asked me like a year ago, I'd say prequels and then that. or whatever. If you're like the horrible kind of purist, you can watch everything in order, even like Clone Wars and Rebels and things like that.
One thing that I read online, which I think is really clever, is if it's a little kid and they don't know the twist, what you do is you watch A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, so the twist is still intact, and then you watch the prequel trilogy as like a flashback, and then you end with Return of the Jedi to wrap everything up. And I think that's the best way, honestly.
I think you should watch them where it's narratively important. And I think it's strange because when you watch the prequels before the original trilogies, the prequels do recontextualize Darth Vader within the story of the original trilogies in ways that aren't always good. Like when you think about how Anakin gets to be a Force ghost, even though he's like a genocidal monster at the end.
Should not be a Force ghost.
Which you see in the prequels. The prequels recontextualize how you see Darth Vader. So I think it's important to watch them as they narratively wanted to be seen, which is original trilogy, prequel, sequel. You can really watch the one-offs whenever. You could watch them at the end, honestly.
I would agree with that.
Maybe also, watch the one-offs before you watch the sequels, actually, I would say.
It would be one-offs before the sequels. But yeah, also like the same, like that's why Ben Solo didn't get a Force ghost, was because of like all the bad stuff he's done. So I think the fact that
he still disappeared.
because Obi-Wan disappears too. But I think
I watched Clone Wars. I know how the disappearing works.
Yeah, well,
you don't get to just disappear.
Hey, is that why Qui-Gon disappeared?
He didn't disappear. He wasn't done with his training.
Exactly. Oh,
but he could manifest himself without a body. He was a Force ghost without a body.
The next part in the best worst segment, I would say, this is just a fun one.
Okay.
Star Wars, due to the toys and marketing, every single character, even if they don't have a single line, has a name. What do you think is the single best background character?
Max Rebo is good, but there are... Oh, yeah, I know. Hold on.
I know. You like 4-LOM. I knew it.
No. Shit.
Is it the ice cream guy?
No. Why can't I? Salacious Crumb is definitely the best name. The monkey lizard that Jabba the Hutt has, Salacious Crumb.
Salacious Crumb actually just came back. He had a cameo in The Mandalorian.
Was that actually him?
Yeah, I read an
interview. Was that just a lizard monkey?
No, I thought it was just a lizard monkey, but actually in an interview they said that was Salacious Crumb. So, but anyway, I just really friggin' love Kit Fisto. Like, one of the first action figures I got when I was a wee lad was Kit Fisto. He's just like if Aquaman was a Jedi. It's cool. Has dreads.
It's definitely a name you don't forget. That's one of the background characters whose names you always remember. You see him and you're like, that's Kit Fisto.
It's friggin' Kit Fisto. And then like in episode 2, when he does the Force push and he smiles, that's just charisma right there. You gotta love Kit Fisto. He got taken out like a punk by the Emperor for some reason.
Dead.
Which was just so disappointing.
Why are those other 3 even there?
Just send Mace Windu in by himself.
That's basically what the fight was.
That was because Ian McDermott couldn't do choreography. But anyway. So with that said, moving on to the next segment now, I would like to dedicate this segment. I call it, let's talk about Solo, the misunderstood masterpiece.
Okay.
Solo is such... I watched it for the 4th time like 2 days ago. It's just such an amazing Star Wars movie that also is just a good like space western in general. And I think there's something in it for everybody. And it's just so well done that I will be bitter till the day I die that it is the lowest grossing Star Wars movie.
I think a lot of blame can be put on Disney. When they did that, because they put it out in the spring,
Hmm.
And it really felt like they were testing the waters for 2 Star Wars movies a year, like they do with Marvel films.
Hmm. They
And
were definitely trying to make more money.
Star Wars can't do that because Star Wars is incredibly fatiguing to fans, and they need years to process a single film.
Right? Like
And
they're like,
like
we'll decide in like 5 years if we like this movie or not.
yeah,
'Cause I think- yeah.
Marvel can have a bad film and it be brushed off, and Star Wars cannot do that. The fans are in like a complete just like toxic relationship with Star Wars, where it's just like this film is not good. I will be hurt.
Like it hurts my soul. Well,
and
yeah.
and it's like Star Wars is unkillable, but it's also like, yeah, it's like you cannot have too much. You can't put 2 movies right next to each other, especially an incredibly divisive one,
Hmm.
because that came out directly after
Last Jedi.
Last Jedi.
Hmm. So yeah, I think
Yeah, but I would agree that it's a good movie.
the reason it bombed, I would say, is because they tried to squeeze it in. It was like I said, Last Jedi ripped the fandom in half, and then Solo came out, and I feel like everyone was too tired to go see it. But I honestly think like young Han Solo is almost more compelling than like older Han Solo, and I think the relationships are really interesting. And Infus Nest is such an interesting villain, and the twist at the end, where she's like a 12-year-old girl, was really cool. The only problem I have to this day with Solo is Lando, which is really disappointing because, as I said, he's one of my favorite characters. But Donald Glover, literally, young Lando is 110% a different character. Like he's a dick. Like there's none of the charisma. He's just an asshole the whole movie, and he sleeps with robots. It was a weird choice by Ron Howard to add. Um, I really every time, but he's only in the movie for like 20 minutes, so it's excusable. But I really wish they would have done Lando character justice. But besides that, the rest of the movie is flawless.
I'd say the color grading can be a little weird in some spots. It's very brown sometimes, which is super strange.
No, it's brown because it's a space western. Like it's all tinted orange because it's a western. And as you've said, like that whole film could be reshot as a Civil War drama and make complete sense.
Yeah.
Like the transporting coaxium could be like transporting napalm, and then like he fought in the war and like defeated.
Or just cold or gold or something.
Literally anything.
Yeah. There's definitely, it definitely takes a lot from Western as a genre. As a Star Wars film, it's strange in the fact that it is one story and there isn't multiple stuff going on. In like every Star Wars film, there is at least an A plot and a B plot going on.
It is. I have heard people say that it's weird there's no subplot, and for some people they couldn't get over that. But I think that's fine.
That's yeah. Also, Star Wars movies are ridiculously long, and Solo didn't need to be ridiculously long.
Well, no, it's like 90. It's like short for a Star Wars movie. Like average Star Wars movie is like 2.5 hours,
which is like good. Okay. Good.
You're like, good. This is focused. It's a focused movie. It knows what it's want.
It doesn't have the weird Star Wars side story that every single Star Wars film seems to have, where the gang does something really weird and offbeat for a little bit. Every Star Wars movie has that.
The one thing I was thinking about it a couple days ago. I think instead of L337, so for the entire original trilogy, Lando's co-pilot is Neum Nub. Instead of 337, it should have been a young, like, teenage Neum Nub. But that's
also rest in peace, Neum Nub.
Yeah, he died in Rise of Skywalker.
Which is dumb. They killed him off screen and then told us about it later. Also, I think he was piloting the blockade runner. I don't think he was in a fighter. I think I saw him in the blockade runner. So how did he die on that?
Pour one out for Neum Nub. Well, Last Jedi killed Admiral Akbar, so I think the Rey trilogy just
at least they told you he died.
That was so
they
sad.
cared all about me and Nub. You didn't even know he was dead at the end of the film.
Pour one out for Neum Nub and Big Starklighter, but anyway.
Yeah. So I think it's a very focused film, which is nice. It's kind of refreshing. Yeah, I think it's a really fun movie. It's not overly like complicated or deep thematically. It is really just kind of the story of the lone wanderer Han Solo.
Yeah. With that transitioning then, I don't want to talk about this one for too long, but just in terms of Star Wars doing space westerns, I'd really like to talk about The Mandalorian, because I think that is pretty true blue, also a space western, literally just a lone wanderer story, and he's literally in the desert too. It's just it is a slower plot of a show, but I do also think it's another good example of a space western.
Yeah, I've noticed that Mandalorian is a better watch if you're binge watching it episode after episode instead of waiting for it week per week.
Yeah, here's my problem: is it's 8 episodes, 20 minutes apiece. You put that back to back. That's a 2.5-hour movie. They should have just made The Mandalorian a movie, because as a TV show, that shit is boring as hell.
I kind of like it as a TV show though. I wouldn't want to see like a Mandalorian trilogy or anything like that. I also think Star Wars needed some sort of TV show, which is nice. It's strange. It is kind of better in a binge watching format, and it's not like months go by and you haven't really seen anything. It is very good at just like kind of showing you things, and just like, especially characters who aren't like necessarily super invincible. The Mandalorian gets kind of like that at the end. He becomes kind of one of those characters.
Well, that's what I liked about it was the show is about how he's trying to live up to the Mandalorian legacy, and in every single episode until the end, he gets his ass kicked in every episode. And I think that was a really good commentary on like trying to live up to like this impossible legacy. But that whole middle stretched out over a month is just it's really long.
There's something very strange going on in Star Wars right now that isn't reflected in any of the films. The films completely, film directors are film directors. They just like, they're not looking a lot at this kind of other stuff. There's a dynamic between which has been around in Star Wars now for a long time, which is echoed a lot in things worked on by Dave Filoni. It started in Clone Wars. There's large swaths of that show dedicated to Mandalorians and Mandalore as like a planet.
Now they're not Mandalorians because they take their helmet off. So they're just
which is dumb. That's something that's really strange about the Mandalorian show. Is like, these are descendants of They are. One of the guys he talks to is a Vizsla, who was one of the Mandalorians in Clone Wars who took off his helmet. I don't understand where that came from.
I think
very strange, especially considering that he was saved during the Clone Wars.
He was
brought into the fold during the Clone Wars.
It's a very weird retcon.
It is a strange retcon, especially considering you even go into Rebels and they're taking off their helmets.
So yeah, say by that logic, only Din Djarin, who is the Mandalorian, and Boba Fett are true blue Mandalorians because they don't take off their helmet. Even Jango Fett and all of the people from Clone Wars are not actually Mandalorians now.
which is, and we're supposed to see what's her name. Even in the next season or whatever, we're getting just a million characters, which I kind of wish they weren't telling us about. But
I am worried about that.
It's Bo-Katan, who was a Clone Wars and Rebels character. She's apparently going to make an appearance in The Mandalorian next season.
So is Boba Fett as well.
Currently, the last time we saw Bo-Katan, she was basically the queen of the Mandalorians. She was the last one to hold the Darksaber before this guy got it, which I'm pretty sure that Imperial guy is the Mandalorian.
I would say I wouldn't say so.
I think he is.
No, because I rewatched the series recently, and they say Moff Gideon is guilty of war crimes of like genocide against the Mandalorians. So
Sure.
I think he has the Darksaber because he killed all of the Mandalorians.
I think he might also be a betrayer Mandalorian. There were Mandalorians that joined the Empire. I do know that. There were Imperial factions of Mandalorians.
It could be that then as well. I'm definitely curious.
The fact that he holds the Darksaber makes me think that he's the ultimate victor over the Mandalorians, which is strange that Bo-Katan is still alive.
She must just be in a prison camp or something. But
I guess.
Yeah, with that said, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, yeah, sorry. So yeah, there's this dynamic between the Jedi and the Mandalorians where they were ancient enemies, but they've become allies and they're both these like ancient warriors that live by a code, and like one's ancient enemy is now going to be is now a savior in that the Mandalorian has found a force sensitive child and must now get it to where it belongs, to save it, essentially, instead of seeing it as an enemy or a fight.
It's definitely I'm very excited. I'm worried the last thing I'll say before we move on is I'm worried that season 2 will have Spider-Man 3 syndrome, where they're just like people liked the first season, so for season 2 we're going to put in 2,000 different characters just so we can expand everything, and I think it'll get a bit jumbled, but
I'm a little afraid of that too. I'm really scared of seeing Ahsoka in live action.
I think Rosario Dawson will do a good job though.
Maybe. We'll see. It's strange. Sometimes the animated characters aren't meant for live action screens, so we'll see.
Anyway, yeah. With that said, I'd like to move on to the next segment, the very controversial segment in my show. I call it Hot Takes. This is just, we don't have to spend long on this, so we can get to the last segment, which is the most fun. But what is your single spicy hot take about the series, Star Wars series as a whole? I'll go first, so you have an example.
Okay.
My hot take is that even though I love him, don't get me wrong, I love him, everything is Yoda's fault. And I've been saying this for years. Now, let's trace the timeline. Okay, we got in the prequels, Anakin is plagued by visions of Padme dying. He goes to Yoda for help. Yoda says, "Forget your loved ones." He becomes Darth Vader. Let's fast forward to Empire Strikes Back. Luke is plagued by visions of his friends dying. He goes to Yoda for help. Yoda says, "Forget your loved ones." Luke charges in head first, loses his hand. You even fast forward to Last Jedi, and Yoda is literally like, "Get over yourself and go fight for the rebels." And then Luke dies. Everything bad that happens to a main character is because of Yoda. Like literally, I'd almost say that Anakin becoming Darth Vader is Yoda's fault, because Yoda turning him down is what made him go to Darth Sidious, and that's my hot take.
That's a good hot take. I think, a lot of that stems from like the Jedi being detached from emotion, which is their actual weakness.
They should not
where
be monks.
they see emotion as dangerous because they see emotion as like Sith-like, and so they want to detach themselves from it. But like the Sith aren't evil; they're evil. So it's like they're
Well, that's
evil. They
what
manipulate emotions. They're not expressing emotions.
that's
So
what
the
I like.
Jedi that
Yeah,
expresses like emotion and like has like love for people and things like that is like powerful. That's why Luke is able to overcome and even turn Darth Vader back, is because he's an
exactly.
emotional
So
Jedi who can appeal to Darth Vader through
I
emotion, which
think,
no other
yeah,
Jedi could do.
I think Luke, once he became a Jedi and had a green lightsaber, and Rey and Rise of Skywalker were really interesting because they were the first examples of like gray Jedi, like Jedi
Hmm.
that aren't afraid to love people. And I think you need that because otherwise you're a space monk. And as
I
I've
wouldn't even say they were like in the aspect of like gray Jedi. I think they were just like pure Jedi. They were more Jedi than the Jedi that came before them because they understood their own emotions.
hmm
Um, yeah,
but yeah, everything's Yoda's fault. Uh, hashtag
let's see.
Yoda made Darth Vader. What is your hot take,
What
real
is my
fast?
hot take?
Uh,
Oh man, Luke is really boring. I'm not a huge fan of Luke as just like a character. He's never been like my favorite character, and I've never felt like super attached to him.
I didn't like
Um,
I didn't like Luke until Return of the Jedi. See,
I
because
think I think he's better there than he is. He's just very normal. He's just like, he's supposed to be the fantasy like farm boy who like meets a wizard and he goes off on an adventure. And he starts off as just like that. He is the fantasy farm boy, and he's really boring. And he does get better. Obviously, getting his ass handed to him by Darth Vader is like,
it's his turning point.
yeah, is like, well, you messed up. Like, this sort of attitude is bad. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It wasn't until he lost his hand that he became a good character in my eyes. Like the
sure. Yeah.
first two movies, he's super whiny and impulsive,
Hmm.
and it's not until he gets the green lightsaber and learns to be a Jedi that he like actually becomes a good hero character.
Yeah.
Very nice. With that said, it's time to move on to the last segment of the show.
Okay.
I call it popular trends and controversy. And what this is I will bring up um, some points of contention within the fandom, and you'll just tell me your opinion and what side of it you're on for the
Okay.
different points. Now, I have seven different points of contention we're going to talk about. So I guess the first thing I will talk about is I have here the original VHS copies of the Star Wars trilogy before they were altered into the 2004 special editions,
Hmm.
which are ripe with so many CGI add-ons. And
Yeah.
then he continues to add CGI to the original trilogy and added scenes. What is your take on the special editions?
My take is he can do what he wants. It's his art, obviously. But where it gets bad is that he obfuscates being able to even get your hands on original copies of the films as they were when they were premiered. Like, you can't buy those unless you're like buying someone who bought them like 30 years ago. So
literally you
that's like,
can't.
I think that's the biggest issue, is he tampered with them, which is fine. He is the creator of them. He can do that if he wants, but he should still allow people to see the original films. He's kind of
Say,
erasing that
like I said,
from
if
history.
if you want to watch the movies without CGI, literally the only format is VHS, and that
Yeah.
is not good.
Yeah. I think there should be original editions to come out. I don't think it should be something we're not allowed to see. It's so strange.
He's never gonna do that because he's buried them. But um, I heard something recently that actually kind of justified the special editions in my mind. It was he came out and said that he added the CGI to the original trilogy to test if the technology would work for the prequel trilogy. So,
And he decided that, yeah, it'll work.
yeah, it doesn't mesh very well, but I think
Yeah.
at
I
least
wouldn't care so much about special editions if there was a way to see original edition.
but you can only see the special editions.
Yeah.
Um, with that said, the next point, speaking of things that are buried, let's talk about the
Mhm.
holiday special.
Okay.
You have not seen it, have you?
I have not. I've seen parts of it, but
It is
I have not seen all of it.
me neither, but it's also a film that he has actively tried to erase from history. You cannot get like a single copy of it like anywhere.
Hmm.
He's erased it from history. It's just such a weird idea of like I'm gonna make a Star Wars film that's a Christmas special and it's gonna have a bunch of music segments. It's just such a bizarre
Yeah.
idea.
It's not Christmas, is it?
Well, because
It's Thanksgiving.
no, it's Life Day. It's Star Wars' version of Christmas, but you can't say Christmas because of religion.
I thought that it was like Thanksgiving. Either way, uh, yeah, it's strange. It came out between the original Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, which is like it. Star Wars didn't really know what it was or anything. It was it's interesting. I wouldn't say that it's like, oh my god, it's such a black mark on Star Wars history, because it's just like it's
Just
very early,
well, it's
and
just
it's
like this
like,
very campy thing that happened.
yeah, it's funny. It's just like, what's going on? Like,
I want
obviously
the
it
I
might
want
just be like
yeah.
hard to watch, and it might get like boring at sometimes, but it's also just like,
I want
why are
the
you so
yeah.
embarrassed of this? It's fine.
I want the
It,
4K edition of the holiday special out on Disney
yeah.
Plus, but yeah, it's just so weird. And The Mandalorian actually like canonized it because they talk about Life Day in The Mandalorian. So it's almost
The
like
Mandalorian takes a lot from the holiday special, actually.
which is so bizarre.
Well, yeah, it aesthetically it takes a lot from the Mandalorian. That big shocky rifle he uses
Oh,
is the
that's
one that Boba
from
Fett
yeah,
had.
because
His
Boba Fett's first appearance is in the holiday
his
special.
design is the same as the way that Boba Fett appeared in the holiday special. The blurgs, those giant mouth monsters from like the second episode, were from the holiday special. Yeah, there's a lot taken from it, which is interesting. It's kind of a way that, artists look back at Star Wars and take it and kind of revitalize it
Kind of
into
like yeah, reintroduce it
Yeah,
into
reintroducing stuff that was apparently bad, but now it's seen as good. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, the next thing I'd like to talk about is during these vast hours of quarantine, I recently completed Knights of the Old Republic, and that was just a masterpiece of a Star Wars story and a game. And I think if it counted as a movie, that would also be top 5. But which is why I'm getting to my point is the writers of Game of Thrones were going to make a Knights of the Old Republic movie before they
Hmm.
backed out due to pressure.
Yep.
I personally love the Old Republic and think it's fascinating. Are you a fan of? Would you have wanted to see an Old Republic movie, or do you not care either way?
No, I would not want to. There is a reason. It's hard to kind of. Okay, the
I
Old
think
Republic
yeah,
is still a offshoot and retelling of A New Hope. In a way, it tells the first three. It is a mesh of like the first three films of Star Wars.
hmm
You have your super weapon that
hmm
blows up at the end.
well, that's Star Wars
A,
101.
a robotic Sith Lord that's hunting you down.
Hmm.
Um,
The reveal of the twist halfway through the
there's
story.
yeah, of your connection to the main villain of the franchise or the story. Um, I think it's interesting to see an era where there's a lot of Jedi. The hard thing about it is we've already seen the era of pre-Empire, and I'm not sure how much more they could do. It's weird thinking about
Well, I think,
going
yeah,
thousands of years before a story and then still knowing how it ends
it's
thousands of years
still
later.
I just thought it was really interesting. It's pretty much the equivalent of medieval Star Wars, which is really
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And I thought the characters were really dynamic. Um, one
There's
thing,
also a lot of characters that can only really work in sort of a video game
mhm,
format where you just have an unlimited amount of time to talk
yeah,
to all of
oh
them.
yeah, if you didn't like sit down for half an hour and ask each person about their backstory, it wouldn't work. But
Also, HK, the assassin droid, is we
HK-47 is amazing.
when he first came out was a fun character, but also we've had a lot of droids like HK since then.
Well, I think
Um,
he's pretty unique because he's a droid that was built by Darth Revan, and then he gets
mhm.
his mind wiped, but he still has the subconscious urge to kill everything. And
Yeah,
he's just a really funny character. I care more about HK-47 than I would say about like uh, K2SO or whatever, but that's just my opinion.
yeah. I think it'd be hard to put that story one because it would technically be a video game movie, and those are always bad.
Yes.
Um, it would have to be something completely different. I think it should not try to follow the story beats of Knights of the Old
Well, say
Republic.
it's not happening now because the
Yeah,
the writers left. I
they are doing something now.
I really wish they would have done it though.
There were
Um,
rumors of like a teenage Yoda movie or something like that, which I am not looking. I just don't know what they can really do in terms of films.
yeah,
It's
I
going
don't
to be
know.
interesting what the next Star Wars film is going to be. We'll probably see what that is like next year.
The Obi-Wan series got moved to
It got
2022.
moved, which is fine, good. I'd rather it be moved than it be bad.
Yeah, and then it's pretty much confirmed that Hayden Christensen is going to come back, which is cool. But
For what?
Clone Wars flashbacks, live action Clone Wars flashbacks.
Interesting.
But anyway, the last thing I'll say about the Old Republic is I really like how the Rey trilogy pulls a lot from it, actually. Like, the whole plot of chasing down map fragments with, like, a band of nobodies is, like, Force Awakens 101. And then the whole thing of, oh my gosh, there was something in Rise of Skywalker that was also just, like, pulled directly from Knights of the Old Republic that I really appreciated. And even Darth Revan is like in the background of Rise of Skywalker, so it's pretty interesting. But
You know, something that's so strange about they go to nowhere familiar, and something that I'll always criticize Star Wars for is more desert planets.
I
This
love,
how many desert planets can you possibly have? I'm so sick of seeing new desert planets. There's literally two within the sequel trilogy. They go to they go to three different desert planets because they go back to Tatooine.
I
So
really,
I don't know why they don't use places that are more familiar. Why is there Exegol and not like Korriban or something like that?
I thought Exegol was really cool, but
It's cool looking, but it also doesn't make sense. Or it's like Exegol, and then C-3PO is like, the ancient Sith planet. And it's like, really? This hasn't ever come up before, the ancient Sith planet? And if he knows what it is, how do they not know how to get there? It's very strange.
yeah, um,
Why is it a wayfinder instead of like a holocron?
It's shaped like a
When
holocron
the
too.
Jedi come out of the star field or whatever, the admiral says to shoot them with ion cannons, but they start shooting turbo lasers at them.
It is what it is. The next point has really every single person I've talked to who's a new fan has said this, and I just want to bring up the point. Boba Fett, is he overrated?
He's cool looking, and that's all you really need to be in early Star Wars. He's cool in
He has 5
or
lines.
Empire Strikes Back, but he's not in it very much.
He literally he has
Is
5 lines.
super
Yeah.
iconic though.
Well,
He's like
yeah.
he's like one of, if you think of Star Wars, it's like Boba Fett. Everyone knows who Boba Fett is, even if he seems a little, yeah, he's not in it for very much.
I've never seen a background character that's so popular. You invent a mythology and an alien race to match the background character. Like that's just like he is ridiculously
Yeah, it's
popular.
yeah, he's just an iconic character. He just looks cool, so people really like him.
Well, see, there's like 2-page articles written by people who are watching the series for the first time, and they're like, Boba Fett was so hyped up. Why is he hyped up? Because I just watched it for the first time, and that guy was in it for like 10 minutes. And I could see
I
that
think
side of it.
I think a big thing too is seeing it as kids. He's really cool when you're a kid. You're like, that guy's awesome, and it's like you can almost like imagine yourself under the helmet because you don't know what his face looks like. At least when you see him there, I guess you do know what his face looks like. Technically,
Hmm. Yeah, it's Django Fett.
yeah, it's Jango Fett. Um,
Well, it's for that reason I think honestly Din Djarin was a better character because he has personality.
yeah, yeah, I would say the Mandalorian is a better character than Boba Fett. Yes,
If we were ranking
he is a
Mandalorian
character,
yeah,
which is something he has on Boba Fett, I guess.
Boba Fett is not a character. He's set dressing.
Boba Fett's also just like there to be really intimidating, I'd say. And I guess
Yeah,
he wins, and he kind of gets what he wants in Revenge, or not Revenge, Empire Strikes Back. Yeah,
yeah. It's for same exact argument though is why I think Django Fett's better. Actually has a personality, and you get the backstory, and he's got double pistols.
the West Stars.
Yeah.
They make the weird sounds.
The seismic charges.
Sarges, which are very strange space weapon.
Pretty dope though.
Pretty dope.
Better than anything Boba Fett's ever done. What's he done? Follow the Millennium Falcon? That's what I thought. The next, anyway, moving on from Boba Fett.
Okay.
Unless you had one more. Unless you had
No, I have nothing else to say
you don't
about
want
Boba Fett.
to vehemently defend Boba Fett
No.
for the next hour. Yeah, no. Looks cool. That's all there is to it.
I always subscribe to the idea that he escaped from the Sarlacc pit, though.
Well, that's been confirmed now because
Yeah.
he's going to be in season 2 of The Mandalorian.
The last shot of Return of the Jedi was supposed to be him escaping from the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah, but
originally.
They decided
not to do that.
Yeah. And then George Lucas realized how popular he was, and he was like, "Oh shit." Probably should have done that. This is I could not find factual statements to support this, but there's a very strong rumor going around online. Basically, sometime in the next few years, George Lucas is going to release his next batch of special editions, and to match the prequels, they're going to paint out Yoda in Empire Strikes Back and make him CGI. How would you feel about that?
That's such a bad idea. Well, that doesn't even make sense. I don't think they'll even do that, considering that he was a puppet in Last Jedi. I don't think they'll do that. I think Star Wars finally kind of understands that a lot of its power and in its visualization comes from practicality. I don't know. I don't think he'll do it. I don't think that he has the gall, and I don't think he's stupid enough to
No,
paint out
but listen here.
Yoda.
Yoda was a puppet in the original version of Phantom Menace.
Well,
and
yeah,
then,
but he looked terrible.
and then he painted him out and made him CGI
Yeah,
there.
that was a good fix.
One of the few good fixes
Yeah.
that there were. I don't think that's a good idea in any sense.
Mm-mm.
But yeah.
Honestly,
Yoda,
a new special edition, I don't know. Don't add anything. Just
take away
fix what the other special editions did.
Oh
Like,
my
there are
God.
things that are good about the special editions.
Well, they
Things
fixed.
I didn't even really realize were special editions when I watched them as a kid. Like, you know, brightening lightsabers and laser blasts,
Mhm, yeah.
and you know, having that scene where Darth Vader talks to Palpatine,
Mhm.
special edition.
Is a lot better because they made him Revenge of the Sith Palpatine,
Yeah.
which is a lot better.
Giving Boba Fett the Jango Fett voice.
That makes sense. That makes sense canonically.
Yeah.
I would say.
Just things like that. Hayden Christensen at the end is funny, but
It's stupid.
he's gonna stay there. I mean, it's not like he's gonna go away. We're gonna see Hayden Christensen.
I mean, I like Hayden Christensen, but it doesn't make sense narratively wise because George Lucas was like, Hayden Christensen shows up because that was the last time he was good, so that's why his good force goes. But like,
Sure.
he turns into a good guy when he takes his helmet off in Return of the Jedi. So I think it doesn't make any sense to have Hayden Christensen. Also, Obi-Wan didn't get to be young. Otherwise, he should have made it Ewan McGregor at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Maybe he liked himself old in Ghost Space. I mean, you can come back as a ghost. You can look however you want, I guess. Maybe he wanted to look old. That's how Luke knew him.
Like,
if he showed up as young Obi-Wan, he's like, who's that?
Who the hell is Ewan McGregor? Yes, I want to be old forever. I'm Alec Guinness. Yes. And the very last thing I'll say is I don't think people talk enough about, and we've talked about this a lot, but people don't talk enough about how the Jedi are very, very wrong in all of their ideas.
Sure.
They're pretty much space monsters with no feeling, and because of that, everything bad that happens because of that, I would say. And then that goes into the whole Yoda argument and how his teachings is based off that leads to Darth Vader and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they are wrong. That's kind of what, okay. This is sort of like a narrow narrative kind of through line through kind of the whole kind of kind of all the films, I guess, because yeah, in the prequels, you're not allowed to be passionate as a Jedi. You're not allowed to care about specific people. Ooh, sorry, I have some gas. You're supposed to be kind of closed off emotionally and detached from like the world and the people and like death and things like that. Anakin is a very passionate person. He's not a typical Jedi. And Qui-Gon Jinn knew this and was ready to train him as away from the rest of the Jedi because he himself was very detached.
Well, he's like a very rebel Jedi is what everyone says.
Yeah. Qui-Gon Jinn was the father figure to Anakin, and Qui-Gon knew this. He's a father figure. He's not a master. Obi-Wan is a brother, not a father. So when Qui-Gon Jinn dies, Anakin's fate is kind of sealed to be trained as a Order Jedi and not like as a Qui-Gon Jedi.
Mm.
Obi-Wan is much more in line with the Jedi Order. I mean, he joins the council and everything.
He's very by the book, I would say.
He tries to train Anakin the best he can in that way, but he also you know, has Qui-Gon Jinn in him. He's emotional. He loves people, but he still stays true and makes sure that when he needs to be a Jedi, he is a Jedi.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so Anakin goes to the dark side because he basically can't tell the Jedi of his love for Padme. So the Jedi can't help him with his visions of Padme, and only the Sith can, because the Sith are manipulative of the emotions.
Absolutely.
And then you get to the original trilogy, Luke Skywalker, the Jedi, and also the plan of the Jedi is also to immediately kill any sort of dark side thing immediately, just completely destroy it and snuff it out. Then you get to the original trilogy, and Yoda and Obi-Wan are the same way. They're still like Jedi Order Jedis. They want Luke to detach from his friends, and that if they die, that's just the way it's supposed to be, and that he must become detached from that sort of reality in order to become a true Jedi, which he defies Obi-Wan and Yoda and goes to try and save his friends, which doesn't work out for him, but he still is able to be someone who cares and loves. He's not able to kill his father. Like, as soon as he learns that Darth Vader is his father, his dynamic changes with Darth Vader. It's not about killing Darth Vader, it's about saving Darth Vader, his father. And ultimately, he's able to appeal to Anakin through that, and change him back as sort of a Jedi that Anakin never got to see. And then in the sequels, you kind of had something going on. I think it got a little messed up at the end.
I really like here's I guess this is the segment where I really like Ben Solo and his arc, and here's why. You really like Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Sure.
Ben Solo's arc is the exact same copy and paste arc that Zuko goes through. So if you don't like Ben
Zuko's
Solo,
also my problem with it, right? Is Ben Solo is still looks like Anakin Skywalker. You know, Zuko is not a war criminal. Kylo Ren is a war criminal. He does terrible things. He kills innocent people. Zuko
okay,
does not.
Anakin
He is
killed
Zuko
Anakin killed
never
children.
really passes a point of no return because he never kills anyone. So he's kind of always in a position to change. And I think that's kind of strange for Kylo Ren, because his only choices are to die or to go to prison for the rest of his life if
Well,
he
see,
survives.
Zuko's point of no return was when he had Iroh in prison, but
Well, it's when he decided to go with his worst nature and attack the Avatar again in this sort of failed attempt to restore his own honor.
either way though, it's a commentary on pride. See,
Mhm.
he impulsively kills Han Solo, and it's because of pride that he feels obligated to stay a Sith, even though he doesn't want to anymore. And that's why in Rise of Skywalker, where they're literally like, you should be a good guy, and he's like, I can't, and then she kills Kylo Ren, and Ben Solo is redeemed. He's like, I've been given a fresh slate. Pride is pointless. Pride is stupid. I'm gonna be a good guy now. And I think it's the same arc that Zuko goes through, and I think it's really heartwarming.
It's strange. I think they messed up Rey, because Rey in the beginning is a perfect Jedi. She does not have the hangups that Luke had or that Anakin had. She understands people through her emotion to them. She makes friends. She protects her friends. And it makes her more powerful. She's able to defeat Kylo Ren because she's there to defend Poe, essentially, because he hurt Poe. She never gets the detach from the emotions talk. She never even comes close to having to do that. when she becomes a Jedi, she's already surpassed
That's
everybody else.
sorry. That just reminded me back to earlier. The dyad in the Force from Rise of Skywalker is also taken from Knights of the Old Republic, which is why I think that's like they just took that from Knights of the Old Republic because Bastila and Revan were a dyad in the Force.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I get. She never has a moment.
She is never in danger of going to the dark side in these first two films. She's not influenced by it at all because she understands her emotions.
Well,
and
she's in
she
danger
understands like what she needs to like what she should be fighting for. She understands it.
It's I think it's the reason is it's ignorance is bliss. It's once in the third one, once she learns that all her force powers come genetically from the dark side, it's then that once she finally learns who she is that she's in danger, and that's why she starts getting force visions of being a Sith.
But I think that's wrong and kind of against her character. The dynamic she had with Kylo Ren before Rise of Skywalker is completely different in Rise of Skywalker because Kylo Ren was someone who is tortured by his legacy. That's not Rey. She's not tortured by any legacy at all. She's free of that. She wants legacy. That's kind of her weak point is she wants legacy. But ultimately she doesn't need legacy to be powerful and to be strong. And that Kylo Ren's legacy makes him weak because he chooses honor over sort of over redemption, essentially. He's very obsessed with his own pride and being the most powerful. Even when he goes against and he says that like you should be forgetting your past and stuff, he's still ultimately hung up on it because he sees himself as someone who should be powerful.
See,
and Rey does not.
That's the obligation he feels.
And the master and apprentice dynamic is completely swapped in Last Jedi 2 because Rey basically already knows what she needs to know. She doesn't really learn much from Luke, but Luke learns from her because Luke was someone who was always tormented by the dark side, who always kind of had a hard time figuring out what a Jedi really is.
I'm not going to argue with you about it because we're in the last final minutes of the show here, but Last Jedi I think misses the whole point of Return of the Jedi Luke. They say like he has a line in the cave where he's like, what do you want me to do, face down the Empire by myself, which is something he literally did in Return of the Jedi when he turns himself into the Empire to go to Darth Vader.
He still only fights one guy. He still only fights his father. And the rebellion is what fights the Empire. The Empire is the ships and that. And he has to face the dark side of the Empire, while the rebellion has to fight the forces of the Empire, essentially. It's a team effort to bring it down. That he can't face it down alone because he needed his father to kill the Emperor too, because he got his ass kicked by the Emperor.
It is what it is. Like I said at the beginning of the show, the Rey trilogy is very splitting in how people view it, and I think you and me we're at opposite ends of the spectrum. But that's okay. The last point I really want to talk about in these last 5 minutes of the show, though, are the biggest point of contention to ever exist in this fandom. Let's talk about Jar Jar really fast.
Okay.
Now, my 2 cents is, oh my god, people hate Jar Jar so much. My 2 cents is, he was put in the movie for kids. I was a really little kid when it came out, so Sorry, now I have gas. So it doesn't bother me. He has never bothered me. It's one of those things where it's like it's definitely he was put in the movie for the next generation of kids, and it was the previous generation who just absolutely went up in arms hating it. But I was a kid when it came out, and I got the point. It's just like slapstick for children. Um,
Um, yeah, my view on Jar Jar Binks was recently changed by something that Dave Filoni said in terms of characterization of Qui-Gon Jinn as being a compassionate Jedi. Um, yeah, Jar Jar Binks in his society is like a cast out weirdo. Like the Gungans don't like Jar Jar. And Qui-Gon Jinn still finds value within this annoying creature that he even like Qui-Gon Jinn gets annoyed by Jar Jar Binks. Obi-Wan is annoyed by Jar Jar Binks. Jar Jar Binks sits on the level with Anakin when Anakin is first brought to the ship. Obi-Wan is like, we're taking on more people. Like this is another one of the weird people you're bringing on to our adventure here. So I think Jar Jar Binks is sort of someone that Qui-Gon Jinn shows compassion to, even though he's kind of a giant screw up. That Qui-Gon Jinn still kind of believes in Jar Jar Binks.
Jar Jar Binks sticks around because of a life debt, though. It's not like it's not like Qui-Gon is like I'm rescuing you out of charity. It's more like life debt.
He still like brings him around, and he's still like doing stuff. I don't know. I think he's strange because he's a comedic character, but like he's there. He kind of just has to be accepted at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I accept Jar Jar Binks as being there.
For president. I accept Jar Jar Binks for president.
He's on par with Anakin Skywalker.
As your favorite character? That's really impressive.
He just has a lot going on.
You can say what you want. They wrote him out of the movies. Like he has 2 lines in Attack of the Clones.
He did. They wrote him out. There was less of him. Yeah, people are still annoyed. He's an annoying character.
It is what it is. Luke's an annoying character. He's a whiny piece of shit. But anyway, with that said, we've been talking for an hour and a half. So okay. I believe we've made it to the end of our show. Is there any last points you would like to say?
Watch Clone Wars. That's a good one. I don't know. That's probably the best Star Wars. Is Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
That's a hot take for sure. You should have said that in your hot takes, but
I guess I should have. Yeah, that is my hot take.
But with that said, we've made it to the end. Thank you so much if you've watched this whole time, and if you don't know anything about Star Wars, hopefully now you do.